What's up, desktopers? Xavier Wills here for Desktop Bodybuilding, and we are back with another video. And today is part 2 of my 2-part interview with Sergio Oliva Jr. Now, I did a teaser for this episode as well, and that's probably about the first 11 to 12 minutes of this video. And that's where he talks about his relationship with Patrick Moore Akim Williams, or lack thereof a relationship with those guys. So if you do want to skip past that, it's about at the 12-minute mark or so, give or take a few minutes, and you'll be able to skip past that if you've already watched that teaser for this video as well. Also, Patrick Moore has his reply to the teaser of this video as well. That interview is already up on Desktop Bodybuilding. There's a card at the top of the video right now, so you can go straight to that and watch that. But this is a great interview. Sergio opens up about a whole bunch of stuff, including a lot of stuff about his dad, about his new supplement company, about if he's going to compete in 2020 still if the contests do go ahead. All that and much more come up in this interview, guys. And if you like and appreciate this content, please give me a thumbs up. Also subscribe and hit the notification bell button. That way you'll be notified of every video that goes up from myself, Xavier Wills, at Desktop Bodybuilding. And we have a whole heap of interviews coming out. Ones with Brandon Curry, Dan Solomon. Got stuff with Chris Psycho Lewis, the man who trained Sean Roden for that 2018 Mr Olympia win. So make sure you do subscribe. Anyway, that's it. Hope you guys really enjoy this video. Yeah. Now, you're an outspoken guy. You very much speak the truth of what you believe. You'll talk about other competitors, not necessarily in a negative way, but you'll bring up their names and give your honest opinion, which I think is amazing for the sport. There's other guys out there that do it. You got obviously Nathan Diash, and there's a few other guys that do it. But I think a lot of guys out there now are scared to do that because they're worried about the way they'll be judged, talked about on social media and stuff that wasn't around back in the day. But when, Pro Bodybuilding Weekly first came out with Dan Solomon and Bob Ciccarello, you had Jay Cutler saying something about Ronnie, and it was really cool because then they'd bring it up at the Olympia and it would create that really good rivalry. And so sometimes now it's just guys just throwing things around, and it's just, sometimes it's a bit fabricated. But two guys going into this Arnold Classic that, I don't know what you want to call it, if it's a beef or words were said back and forth, was Patrick Moore and Akim Williams. Now, you came out obviously on top of all these guys. A lot of people were comparing you and Patrick Moore leading into the show, and some people were saying, nah, Patrick will win. Other people say, nah, Sergio. And I did predict you would beat Patrick Moore, but I thought it might be a little bit closer. Now, did you and Patrick talk at the show, before or after the show? Like, what went down between you, Patrick, and you and Akim?
Well, first I have to touch on that. You brought up Pro Bodybuilding Weekly. I don't think you even have any followers that even know what you just said. That is literally what I would listen to when I first started bodybuilding. I would listen to it on my little iPod, like it was like a mini disc, and I would listen to it while I worked out. It was so crazy because that's what got me into bodybuilding. I loved hearing the gossip, and it was like almost news for bodybuilders. So that's really cool that you brought that up. But you're right, it hasn't been anything like that since. And the beef, you're right. Nowadays, it's like, it's either so fake or it's so disrespectfully personal. And there's people that don't know how to write. They don't know how to talk about someone else without having to tear them down or talk about their personal issues. It's just really shitty with some guys. And you're right. They don't come at me because they know that I will destroy them if they ever want to come at me on a personal level. But the Patrick thing was very disheartening for me because, and I didn't talk about this. Was the first time, and even Dexter talked about it in his big interview that he just did. It was the first time I've never came back at anyone. Akim and Patrick made full long videos about me, and I didn't say anything. I just showed up on stage. But the Patrick thing was the most disheartening because me and Patrick were really good friends. If I had to pick probably my best friend of the Open Pros, it would have been Patrick. We used to be on Labrada together, and we got screwed by them together a long time ago, and we kind of had each other's backs. And it was really cool that, when we were both, amateurs, we took care of each other. And then now here we are getting ready for the Arnold. And I didn't tell anybody this. This is exclusive Desktop Bodybuilding. Patrick's wife left him. And now he's talking to me, right? Someone who I had the same thing happen, and we're relating, and I'm messaging him every day, man, you know what? Screw that. We're going to kill this. We're going to do this, blah, blah, blah. Sending him all these quotes and memes every day. I'll comment when he's closing the gym down. So we're talking all the time. Now I do an interview on RX and I say that if you add 4 people that were missing at the Olympia, he would have been moved back 4 places. And this is just a perfect example of the social media, what I was talking about today, is that you have someone, and this is what happened. I know all his fans, all his little dick grabbers sent him all the video. Oh my God, look, Sergio's talking shit, Sergio's talking shit. So he already watched it with that mindset. And that's all I said. I didn't talk about his body. I didn't talk about that I didn't compare him to me, nothing, none of that. And they all made that up. Palumbo and all the other places made that up. They said, Sergio said you could have got last place. Never did I say those words. He said that if he would have done the Olympia, he would have beat you. Never said that. And I really wish, and I told Patrick this, I said, you need to watch that again because you blew up for nothing. And this is the only thing that made me upset, and this is why we won't be friends again, is because we're talking every day now, right? I'm consoling you because of your issue with your relationship. How come you don't message me? How come you don't text me, you don't DM me, you don't call me? You go straight to make a video on your story, and then you go straight to an interview with RX with Palumbo. It didn't make any sense. If we're friends, then even if I said something disrespectful, you should go to the other bodybuilder first. And that's just the difference between I thought pro bodybuilders and fitness industry people are different, but he acted like a fitness industry person where he wanted that attention. And sometimes that's what's happening nowadays. And you said it a little bit in the beginning of this interview. Some guys actually want that attention and they'll actually create beefs because then they can bite off of those followers. Yep. You know, I'm the first to tell you, I don't give a shit about followers. I don't care at all. It doesn't even matter to me, social media. But I have way more than him, and he's smart. If he starts up a beef with someone who has 3 times as many followers than him, no matter what, those people are going to click on his page. Who is this guy? And it's very smart marketing. Unfortunately, you just ruined a relationship with a good friend for no reason. So now here we are, we're talking all this shit. Now Akim comes out of nowhere. I've never even talked about Akim. Now he's talking about that I got beat at the Olympia so bad that I actually ran with my tail between my legs. Not that I took time off because I was going through hardship in my life. Not that I wanted to gain a lot of weight. I didn't want to keep doing shows like him and place the same every year like he does. I actually wanted to significantly move up. But in their heads, I was scared and I ran away from bodybuilding. And then look, all you have to do, and I want everybody who's watching this, you don't have to give in to these guys sometimes. If you know that you're better than them or you know you're going to whoop ass, sometimes that hurts so much more. These guys made all these interviews and all these posts, putting these little subtle things in their posts about me, and then they watched me beat them. That has got to be the most disheartening thing. And this was the worst part about the whole Patrick thing. The only reason I brought it up is I was telling him sometimes with bodybuilders, they start to believe their own hype. And you'll go into a show telling yourself, I'm going to win. People need to understand there's never, ever going to happen in the history of bodybuilding where someone's never done the Arnold before and he's going to beat someone who's won the Arnold or just got second place at the Olympia a couple months ago. These guys don't tap the brakes. You're never going to surpass them within a year. If you are, it's going to be where you're getting closer, and then you place right behind them, and then you can pass them. You're never going to go from the back to the front, and unfortunately, he started to believe that. And this was the worst part about it is because Patrick got 10th. That's a great placing. That is actually a great placing when you have 5 past champions doing the show. Unfortunately, when you and your fans are talking about how Patrick's going to win, it makes that 10th place seem like it's a bad placing when if he had never said anything, he had never opened his mouth, everyone would have been like, oh my God, you placed top 10 in your first Arnold with 5 past champions and a Mr. Olympia. But because we hyped it up, because of social media is now becoming more important than actually doing the work. Now it looks like he's the biggest failure of the Arnold. And people said that, and I hate that they said that about him. He was the biggest letdown of the Arnold. That's so, I hate that. And I feel so bad for him. And it's all just because he didn't want to take my advice. I really was trying to help him out, and I gave a lending hand out. So no, I didn't talk to him at the show. I didn't talk to either one of them. People that usually talk shit about me, they're all tough on the camera, but then when I'm with them backstage, they won't say anything. And Akim has to feel like dog shit because he literally has never beat me before. He's never beat me. So here he is now again. And then at prejudging, he was in first call out. So now here he is in first call out. I'm waiting on the side. Akim does one of these where he leans back, looks at me and goes, I got you. Well, no, bodybuilding is not a show where you're placed at prejudging. It is an all-day event, and he learned that because not only did he go from battling for 4th or 5th, he was battling for 8th at the end of the show. So this was just proof that, man, sometimes you just keep your mouth shut and just do the work. And unfortunately, I don't really care about Akim or having a relationship with him, but the biggest disappointment was that I lost a friendship with Patrick out of this. And what did I do? This is what Aceto keeps saying. You literally talked about math. you added 4 people and you added it to a placing and made people mad. So I don't know. I don't know what else I can do.
Yeah, and I watched that RX Muscle interview with you, and I watched the one with Patrick obviously afterwards as well. And my takeaway was that you weren't talking badly about him. You were just sort of saying, hey, like, it wasn't the strongest Olympia. Add these guys in, and he placed where you placed, but he's heavily hyped. And even if you put him a place or 2 places ahead of where he was, he's still back in 12th or whatever, and people wouldn't have been talking about him the same sort of way had it been a stronger lineup. And that's I totally agree with that as well. And I think, like you said, he has all these people sending it to him saying, oh, look what Sergio said about you. And I feel like that means it almost gives him in his head the right to be like, hey, I should be pissed off about this. Because, if I had 20, 30, 50 people send to me something like, look what this guy said about you, I'd be like, well, what did that guy actually say? And I'd be like, you're going to look at it in a different lens. And I think you summed that up perfectly. And I would love to get Patrick on here as well to at least have his say and where he's coming from as well. Because I think everyone should have their say and be able to say what they want. So I'm welcome to have him on it as well. But let's discuss what is going on with your competition plans now, because obviously we don't know how long this whole thing's going to go for. We don't know how long you're going to be in Australia. Just say that competitions come back a month, 2 months, 1.5 months, whatever, before the Olympia's meant to be on, whenever that might be. Will you do those shows? Because right now I think you're qualified on points, I believe, if that's correct.
I don't think so. I don't think I'm qualified.
Are you not?
If they only have 2 more shows, then yeah, I'll be qualified.
Yeah.
But as of right now, if they were to have the rest of the shows, like if this was a regular year, no. Because look at Luke. Luke Sandow, he got 3rd last year and still end up having to do Tampa.
Yeah.
He didn't do well in Australia, so I was hoping that I was planning I would have did 5th and I would have did really well in Australia, and then I maybe wouldn't have had to have done another show. But even he did 3rd, which is better than me, and he still had to do another show. So I think points-wise, I would still have to do another show. But here's the problem now. Rami's not qualified. There's so many huge names. Rolly, Nathan, there's so many huge names that aren't qualified. So what's going to end up happening is what are they going to do? They're going to have 3 or 4 shows in August, and then we're all going to get bombarded into the same show. Well, they only give points out to so many places. So you're telling me if you get 4th at one of these shows, you're going to get 0 points, and you could be Rolly Winkler? Like, it's so crazy. But this is what people need to understand too, is that bodybuilding is also a business, and these people who have these shows, this is their livelihood. The New York Pro probably pays for certain people's bills for the whole year. And now if you don't have that, what does that mean? Do you push the show back? Like, is the vice president of bodybuilding not going to have his show this year? I don't think so.
Yeah, no way.
I find it very hard to believe that Weinberger and Mannion and all these people that run this sport are just going to say, it's okay, we'll just do it next year. And we'll just do the Tampa and the Chicago. And I find that hard to believe. I have a feeling Trump just extended the stuff in America for another month. So that's them saying that we're not even going to be able to go to a gym for another month. So now you're telling me now starting in May, June, we're going to now, let's just say they come up with the cure in June. Now we have July, August. There's no way that we're going to have enough points or enough opportunities to qualify by September. I have a feeling that they're going to either not have an Olympia, which is going to be so crazy to think about, not having an Olympia for the first time ever, or they're just going to push it back. I think it might not just be in September, and I think it'll give more time for guys to qualify in July, August, September, even October, and maybe have the Olympia in like November, December. I don't know. I think with all this going on, I think that's going to be the only hope, because this isn't like just where the shows are canceled. Like, the gyms are canceled. Nobody's really, except for like the guys in Canada and like Flex Lewis, he has his own gym. A couple of the Florida guys. I heard some of the Kuwait guys are still working out. Other than that, no one's working out unless you have your own gym. So I really find it hard to believe that we're going to now get back into the gym, get into a prep for 19 weeks, and do a show within 3 months. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? I know there's about 10 guys, I think, right now qualified for the Olympia based off the top 5 from last year. And then you've got, the guys who did the post-Olympia shows. I think even Nathan Diashes, he's actually qualified, I believe, because he won a post-Olympia show. I think Cedric's qualified. There's a few other guys as well. So we've got some names there. But like you said, very big names. Obviously, yourself, Rami, there's a whole bunch of names, and Dexter's going to want to compete too, being his last year, and he wants that 30th pro win. So there's a bunch of guys, and maybe, we saw the California pro and the Puerto Rico pro, they were the same weekend last year, maybe we're going to be the same weekend this year, so maybe we'll see even 2 shows on the same weekend, which will split up the lineups and make them not so insanely stacked. Who knows? I don't know what's going to happen, but just say they do those shows pre-Olympia and they've got like a whole bunch. Would you jump into one of those or a few?
Yeah, because I'm going to have to. I think I only got like 5 points for the Arnold. It is a higher placing for points, but I don't think it's enough because I completely forgot about the people that are already qualified. Then you throw in Flex Lewis. He gets the honorary nomination. I forgot. You're right. Nathan already is qualified. So, no, I would have to do another show.
Yeah.
But then that's going to be the thing is in win. I think they were going to actually do a Boston Pro this year too. So maybe that new show might happen. But everyone's already pushing their shows back, like their NPC shows. So I just feel like they're going to push the whole year back. But absolutely to answer your question, yes, I will compete.
Yeah, for sure. Now I want to touch on a bit of, you growing up, getting into bodybuilding a little bit. Now, obviously your mum I think she was into the whole industry as well. Now, your mum and your dad obviously, seem like from interviews I've heard before, it's quite different people. Now, who had more of an influence on you getting into bodybuilding? Was it more your dad or your mum, or sort of a combination?
Oh, 100% my mom. My dad couldn't have done any more to try and defer my career. He did not want me to compete at all. I don't even think he really wanted me in the gym because he felt like it was, if I was in the gym, I wasn't studying. He was just all about school and coming from a communist country. It was just all about, and now that I'm older, I realize like, man, he probably wanted to grow up, go through everything he went through. And he's like, man, my son's going to be like a doctor or something through school where he doesn't have to deal with the hardships that my dad did. But that's saying that I'm that kind of person. Like, I think he always just had it set in his mind that I was going to be that type of person who wants to go to school for 8 years to get some kind of degree. And that's just not me. So I did whatever I could to get into bodybuilding. But yeah, I've only been in the gym one time with my dad, once in my whole entire life. And it was for a photo shoot that was so fake for Muscle and Fitness. They made it seem like we've been training together and we've been doing this together when it literally was the first time we had ever been and the last time we had ever been in the gym together. So I actually really don't like that photo shoot at all because it gave off a different truth than really, but I get it, bodybuilding fans, they want to believe that, man, we're just training together and he's instilled all these things down into me. But no, that's not the case. It was so bad that I had to leave Chicago and I drove to Florida to start my bodybuilding career. And my mom, yeah, she was a pro, but she didn't want me to compete either. I think it was just after me doing it for years, she's eventually going to be like, well, if he's going to do it, I'm going to at least help him rather than just be against him. And that's just how my parents were different. My dad was going to be against it till the end of his time. And he didn't. He went to one show that I did in Chicago because I made a point to make sure that I did this show in Chicago so he could go to it and didn't have any excuses. And he went to it. But then they were like, having him pass out the trophies and doing all this stuff, and I really didn't like it. I didn't like that attention, and I you can tell the people that know me and the ones that don't know me, because the ones that don't know me, they think that I'm like riding off some coattails, and up until now I've been using my dad's name when it's the complete polar opposite. I don't even want any of it. And even at that Junior Nationals this is my dad's first show ever, I'm getting like 4th place. I remember even telling the promoter, like, Della Rosa was in that show. Get Della Rosa's dad. They train together every single day. Della Rosa beat me. Like, what about his dad? Why isn't his dad important, Now you have this, like, fake thing where you're just using my dad's name and his status to pass out these trophies, and then it was kind of like, it made it look like, yeah, that I got that 4th place because of my dad now, And it also made it seem like we're doing this together, which wasn't true. So my whole career, I'm just constantly trying to, like, let people know that, man, I don't want any of. I actually thought about doing my first show under my mom's maiden name. I wanted to do it under a fake name just so I could just do it, because there's just so much. I mean, besides Arnold, there's no other name that you're just going to be just in this shadow forever. So, and that was the really cool thing about the Arnold this year too, is that finally I feel like I broke out of that shadow. So that was another bonus about it. But no, yeah, he didn't help me. My mom helped me, and thank God she did, because there were so many things that she helped me with in the beginning that, man, I could have got injured. There's so many things that could have happened in the course of a bodybuilding career that can change it, and you would have never known me. We would never be doing this interview right now, if I hadn't done something properly, hurt my Achilles or broke some tendon or something, you know? So it's just so crazy how the little things are so important.
Of course. Now, I mentioned earlier before about having the same name as your father. Is that something you wish you didn't have? I mean, obviously, Sergio's your name now. You've made it your own. And I think, like you said at the Arnold Classic, I feel like you've really come into your own. And there's not just that big comparison where we're not just seeing photos of you posing next to your dad being posted everywhere because, you know, that's what everyone wants to believe. Like when you were, I remember just started competing on a national level. And when you got your pro card, all I saw compared was, will Sergio be better than his dad? Who does the victory pose better? And that's all it was. And it wasn't, no one was talking about Sergio, how good's he going to be without your dad's name attached to it? And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I would hate that in a way. Like I would really, really hate that because it's not, you just want to be acknowledged for doing what you're actually achieving, not just being acknowledged because your dad's a former Mr Olympia and now you're getting into bodybuilding. And for a bodybuilding fan, for me, it was exciting to see you and knowing that your dad is Sergio Senior. I was like, that's exciting. It will be interesting to see how far he goes with obviously the genetics and the name and what sort of legacy that will leave. But do you hate that your name is Sergio Oliva?
Yeah, it's funny because you say that because, man, I used to have to tell people, like, my dad didn't pop out of my grandmother at 250 pounds, right? Like, It's like they almost thought that's what he looked like, and there was no building phase. Like, the only difference is we have social media, and back then they didn't. So when my dad was looking skinny and lengthy and losing shows, no one knew. I do my first show, it's televised. My first show, I was 62 kilos. And now they're putting me next, and I'm 6 foot tall, so I don't know what that is in inches, but so it's tall. 6 foot tall, 60 kilos. I look like a twig. And now here they are putting the victory poses next to each other, next to a guy who's at his prime, won 3 Mr. Olympias, and it's just so unfair. And then I would go back and I'd be like, okay, I get it. There's nothing else like this. At that time, there wasn't even any child of any pro even competing, let alone who eventually got their pro card. So then I'd go back and forth like, okay, I get it. But then it started to turn where I would even do well. I'd win a show and they'd be like, yeah, but he looks like shit because he doesn't have his dad's waist or something like that. So it was always like, this is what I always say all the time, is I'm in the first call out and there's always an imaginary 6th person. And it's just my dad. No matter what, I'm always going to be compared to who I'm competing against and my father. So if you had asked me this question a couple years ago, I would have said, yeah, I hate it. I just wish that I could have secretly competed, got to where I was, and then be like, just kidding, my name's Sergio Oliva, And then it's like, oh my God, wow, you actually are really good and you do look really good. But from the beginning, when you're that name, if you're Michael Jordan's son and you're Michael Jordan Jr., it's just going to be like, well, he made the shot, but his shot looked ugly, And that's the same thing that's happening with LeBron. They're critiquing his shooting form, even though he just made a 3. Like, it doesn't matter. They're always going to find something why he's not as good as his dad. So the Arnold was really good because now that kind of like cleared that a little bit, where now people are like, yeah, I'm not better than my dad, and I'm never going to be. And I want people to know that. There's never going to be anyone better than my dad. And my mother is not my dad's mother. Like, it's different genetics. It's not the same. Just because my dad is the same doesn't mean I don't have another half of my genetics that are completely different. But now they're able to do that. Now they're able to look at me and say, okay, he looks great for his physique, and we're appreciating the comparison rather than picking me apart. And that was just really hard for me to do, is like, I would think that I would do really well, and it still wasn't good enough because I'm not as good as the guy who's one of the best bodybuilders ever. Like, Jesus Christ, like, I can't win. So finally, now you're asking me now, I love it, because the Dale Earnhardt Juniors, the Ken Griffey Juniors, all these junior famous people, they did have to go through these phases. And then guess what? They ended up being almost as famous as their father, if not more, because now they're in an age where there's way more media and there's way more spotlight and cameras. So I love it now because now I can say, I make little like fun jokes, like I already have the record for being the youngest person to be on the Olympia stage because my dad held me up as a baby. So
that's cool.
I make fun things out of it, Yeah. And like now I'm the only pro of an Olympia to go to the Olympia stage. Like, no matter what, you can pick me apart. That's still true. That's still a fact. And that's going to be in the history books forever. And if I could ever win it one day, it doesn't even matter if I look 100 times worse than my dad. You can't take certain things out of the record books. And I think that's going to be cool. As my career progresses, my name's going to be a gift for me, where in the beginning it was a curse.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you mentioned all the other juniors, like the juniors of sports stars and all that sort of stuff. Now, the vibe I get from everyone that's, has their father's name, go into the same field and sort of have to prove themselves to be, not just their dad's son. It seems like they all have a chip on their shoulder and they almost use it as a motivating factor. Is that what you've done as well? Because it seems a little bit like you want to forge your own path, so it's almost an extra little bit of motivation.
Yeah, I mean, you seem to be like a real fan of me, so you know that I actually love my haters. That's probably my biggest fuel. Is Aceto makes all the jokes now after this Arnold. He's like, what are you going to use for fuel? Because all your haters are gone. Like they've disappeared. Everyone who was talking so much shit is just quiet and they don't hear them anymore. And I'm almost scared because I need them. But I love proving people wrong. So I more use that more than I want to live up to this name. I think that's the name thing doesn't even come into my head. I say all the time that I'm two people. I'm the athlete and I'm the biggest fan of bodybuilding history ever. So when it comes to the fan me, I think my dad's name comes up and I'd like to achieve this, I'd like to do that and make history and all the little things that I like make fun of. But the bodybuilder in me, I really never rarely think about it. I get off more on, I've seen people attack me my whole career and then they'll eventually write me and they'll be like, man, you know what? I hated you your whole career, but I can't even hate you anymore because you do what you say, you don't really you're not cocky. Because that's the different thing about me too, is I always say I'm not a bodybuilder. I just do it for a living. You're never going to catch me with my shirt off. I don't flex in the gym. I hate putting posing trunks on. There's just some of us that do this because they have underlining issues, maybe they were picked on or something and they use bodybuilding to become something. That's great, but that's not me. I love the sport part of it. I feel like it's my 9-to-5 job. I do it. I only plan on getting in my posing trunks once or twice a year. That's it. I hang them up. And then otherwise you would never know that I'm a bodybuilder except for what I look like. So the way I act and I walk around, you're never going to see me with my invisible lat syndrome walking around. And I'm just different. And that's why, right, I'm flexible, which is very rare for bodybuilders. So I really don't ever really think about my dad or anything like that. Until it's time for the show. Once the shows come around, and then it is cool. It is cool to compare the pictures. I don't do them, but I'm starting to hate them less as I'm starting to fill out my physique. I think it's really cool, and I am starting to see similar things that, like facial features and stuff like that, that are cool. Because unfortunately, I never had this with my dad. So, and that's what Arnold was saying. If he was around today, he would be proud. Blah blah blah. And I don't know. I don't know how it would be if he was around today or not. Maybe because I'm more established, he might have got on board. But I do feel like the more I'm getting into bodybuilding, the more I'm actually getting closer to him. Even if he's passed away, I'm starting to understand things that he did, things that he dealt with. Bodybuilding back in the 60s, I can't even imagine being colored or Hispanic and competing back then, and that's just something I never understood as a kid, because people don't know, I never have seen my dad flex a muscle. He was done bodybuilding by the time I was born. He was a cop. So I only know the cop, a Chicago cop, for 30 years. I don't know the bodybuilder. That life was completely done. So now that I'm into bodybuilding, I appreciate that it's actually making me closer with my father, even though he's not around.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you played your father in the movie Bigger, which was produced by Dan Solomon. And man, I've got to say, I love that movie. Like, I wasn't expecting it would be as good as it was. Now, I know there's obviously, it's a docudrama, which is what Dan Solomon said. So it's not verbatim exactly what happened back in the day with Joe Weider and everything like that, but there is a lot of truth behind sort of the stories. Now, I thought it was awesome. I loved it, like seeing, you playing your father, and then, Callum playing Arnold, and then, Dan actually being able to be the announcer of the Olympia. I was like, this is cool, because I know these guys, know of these guys or know them, and I'm like, that's really, really cool to see. And I love the story as well. The story was cool, and you got to see the fact that there was racism around back then, and all that sort of stuff, and it was very, very interesting for me. Now, Arnold actually came out in the seminar the day after the Arnold Classic 2020, and he was asked about the movie Bigger, and he said he thought the movie, I think, don't quote me exactly, but I think he said he thought it was dumb, because it was not how the movie, it's not what actually happened in real life exactly. And I think he wanted that to be exactly what it was. Now, you obviously played your father. I love the movie personally. You know, I don't know the stories exactly, but what did you think of the whole movie? And did you hear some stories from your dad when he was around, and you're sort of like, oh, that's not right. That's not what actually happened.
Yeah, no, I know that they had to like change certain things up because there was a lot of like iffy things that were happening back in the sport and just creating the sport, especially during that time of the country and what was going on. But yeah, I don't think that it ruined for me at all. I liked it a lot. But again, you have to be a real fan of the sport because you have to take away. I really actually didn't care about the Arnold and my dad stuff or the Joe Weider stuff because you're right. I knew that that wasn't true. I knew that the guy that I was playing with, which was my dad's trainer, wasn't my dad's trainer. That's not true. Arthur Jones was training him. This was just the competition of Joe Weider. It was just a way to make a movie out of it. Yep. So if you're able to just kind of like not take that in stone, you could have actually realized no matter what, they're showing that someone had to create exercises and workouts from just people's bodies. He literally was walking, saw a surfer had lower abs, and then asked him to do his daily routine so he could figure out how do you work lower abs. And that's just something today's day we take for granted. We can look up in a book, how do you work lower abs? Okay, you raise your knees up. Well, this surfer was doing that to jump up on the board over and over again. Or how many times did you have to look at someone where they were pulling something and that helped them get their bicep? So it was very cool to see the beginning, not just of bodybuilding, but just even of workouts. And remember how in the movie there was one gym? Like, that's so crazy. Can you imagine there being one gym in the whole world? And then that's not powerlifting, you know, and you travel to this gym and they have like cables and like all these other machines, you know, other than just free weights. So I really love that part of it because it really showed someone had to have walked around and been like, oh my God, this guy's got a big back. Now I'm going to follow him on a daily routine to figure out what he's doing. So that was really cool. Filming the movie was really cool because they shut down Alabama and they made the streets look like it was the 60s and 70s, and that was really cool. And besides bodybuilding, my biggest thing that I do is movies. I'm a huge movie buff. So I was on cloud nine. Now here I am being able to do something no one's ever done before. I'm playing my father in a movie while I'm also on set of a real budget. I mean, this movie had like a $30 million budget. It was huge. They put a lot of money into it. Yeah. And I think that's why it was a huge bust, because they put so much money into it. And people weren't able to take out of that movie what they should have. They just kind of wanted like, I don't know, action and drama and, you know, maybe twists and turns. But I thought it was great. I thought it was a great movie. Arnold is going to hate anything. Arnold's going to hate anything that he's not in, first of all. And then Callum, I thought Callum did an amazing job. People did not see how much time he spent with a speech person the whole time, like literally before he got to Alabama, then when he was even there in between scenes, they'd call cut, and then he'd immediately be practicing the and then he would jump back in and he would do it again. And of course, you know, they made him like he was like a little slow, which he was in the beginning. Arnold was definitely a little slow in the beginning of his career. So of course Arnold's not going to like that. He's not going to like anything that makes him look any less amazing than the governor, you know? So I don't doubt that he was bashing it. But I loved it. I thought it was really cool. And who else is going to be able to do that? Who else is ever going to be able to play their father? And me and Callum were friends at the time. We were hanging out in Venice all the time. So that was really cool. I got to just hang out with one of my friends.
That's really cool, yeah. And I thought the guy that played Joe Weider, he was brilliant. Like, I thought he was so good. And that, like, Joe Weider has the weirdest accent of all time, and he pulled it off. Like, it was so good.
It was. Yeah, that mustache actually was bothering him the whole movie, that they had to shoot it backwards. So they did it where he had it and then could get rid of it because he couldn't stand the mustache. It just kept like messing with his nose and would change the way he was talking. So they actually shot the movie backwards just because of that mustache.
Wow, that's got to be a bit of a challenge. Now, obviously, you've done a lot of stuff in bodybuilding, and you, like you said, you were sponsored, I believe, by Labrada. You've moved, obviously, away from that. I believe you were let go, you and Patrick Moore, like you said. Now, you've started your own supplement company, Cosmic Industries, I believe it's called, and you've sort of like branded it like the whole sort of space thing. Like you've got like your protein that you're either come out with or you're coming out with is called Milky Way. You've got a whole bunch of other things like that, which I think is really cool and really innovative because we just haven't seen it before. And I love people that innovate and do things differently. Tell us about that and tell us about how it's affected by what's going on in the world right now. Because I know you were launching, I think, around the Arnold Classic from what I heard in another interview.
Of course, yeah. Thanks, Xavier. That means a lot that you really have like paid attention to my career because, yeah, I mean, I've worked in like vitamin shops and GNCs my whole life, so I've always been in supplements, and I love it. And I was able to actually see things like I like this part of a product, but I don't like that, and I don't like this, but I like this. So it was really cool to be able to create my own supplements. But yeah, the whole space thing, I just love space. I think it's really cool, and it's actually unused. No one's using space at all. But it's also very rare that an open pro has their own supplement line. I think Phil Heath is literally, Phil Heath's the only competing pro who has his own supplement line. So that's really cool to be able to have that niche. But yeah, you know what, tell you the truth, I was just tired. I had 3 sponsors drop me right before a show, and I'm just so tired of the lying and the bullshit. I mean, there's just so many pros that are getting dropped for non-bodybuilders, you know, and I say this all the time. Sean Roden was dropped for DJ Khaled, and then he won the Olympia. Like, there's so many supplement companies that are just wanting lines at the expos. They almost just kind of want to like make their head get bigger when they have a huge crowd, when a majority of these people aren't even buying subs. They don't even have someone like, what is DJ Khaled going to explain to someone about breakdowns of pre-workouts or digestion of proteins and stuff like that? They're not. You just hear DJ Khaled there, or this MMA fighter's there, and then you get a line, you know, and they're not even buying stuff. And unfortunately, a lot of the pro bodybuilders are getting screwed over for these clickbait people. And I just was tired of 3 years in a row. And I thought when I signed with GAT, I was like, oh, I'm finally with a big company. They're a bodybuilding company that they're going to keep me. And they did the same thing. They lied to me and dropped me too. So I just was tired of these distractions. Yes, I had personal dramas and distractions, but I also, 3 years in a row, I had financial issues where I'm giving my all, because when I do sponsorships, I can't just pick anyone, no matter what. That's another thing that comes with my name. I can't just sign with one of these like sleazy supplement companies that'll pay you thousands of dollars a month, but then they're like giving out shitty, you know, products, or they're like advertising in a kind of like a sleazy like way. So I had to pick and choose who I was going to be with. So that's why it was so disheartening whenever I did pick somebody, like even Old School Labs. I thought I was going to be perfect for them. I win New York, I signed with them, and then my idea. I told Old School Labs, I'm like, hey, you know what would be a really cool idea is to have all these old guys join the team, and now it's like a following of Samir Banu, Tom Platz. Tom Platz was living with me at the time, and I made him go meet with these people, and he didn't want to, and I'm like, come on, Tom, I think it would be a great idea. He ends up meeting with them. Samir meets with them. They sign both of them. They sign like Danny Padilla. They sign all these old pros. Then they call me up and say that they can't afford me anymore because they're paying all these old pros, and they drop me. So because of my idea, they dropped me. So it was just year after year of this happening. So now finally I have job security. I get to make products how I want them. But also too, the best part is I don't like to lie. I like full transparency. But if you're with a company, and yeah, I might take their pre-workout and their protein, but I might not take their fat burner. I want to tell people this is the fat burner I take. And I get it. It's a business. You can't say you're taking another company's brand, but now I finally can. Now during my prep, yeah, I took my pre-workout, I took my protein, but I actually took Phil Heath's fat burner, you know, and I like cool. Full transparency, and I want to be able to, and I think that's a big problem even with gear. There's so much of like, we can't talk about stuff, and then what ends up happening is people just figure it out on their own, and then they get sick or hurt or they die, and then the media's like, oh, see, bodybuilder steroids did this, or that product did that, creatine killed this person, when if actually we had a bodybuilder that could actually just explain stuff, say what they're doing, how they're doing it, it would save so much time and so many lives and so many people mistakes. So that's kind of what we're going about it with Cosmic Industries, is we're actually going to do more than supplements. The person, Cosmo, the astronaut, he was actually drawn by a Marvel artist for Marvel Comics. Oh, that's cool. And we're gonna do like comic books and like children's vitamins, and like how the comic book would make them want to take their vitamins. We're gonna go to Comic-Con. So I want to do way more than subs. But the main issue is I wanted to stop being dropped right before a show and having that stress. And I don't want to lie anymore. I'm so tired of lying when people come up to me and they're like, do you take this? I have to say I take it, and then it could make them sick. And then now, no matter what, Sergio said, this Halo, Muscle Tex Halo made them sick, you know, and I just don't like that. So now I can finally do whatever I want. I can talk however I want, and that's probably the best part. And that's why I'm so happy. And that's why this prep was so amazing, and it showed at the Arnold.
Yep. Now I've got one last question. Now, obviously, your father's a multiple-time Mr. Olympia. Do you believe you'll win the Mr. Olympia one day? And do you think you can? Do you think you will? All that sort of stuff.
I mean, the simple answer is like, Michael Jordan's son wouldn't get into basketball, and he didn't want to win an NBA championship. LeBron's son's he's not playing with the mindset of, I don't really care if I win an NBA championship. But I don't think that they're thinking about that, just like I'm not thinking about it. I think there's levels to bodybuilding, and I think there's certain stages you need to accomplish first. And I think the Arnold is something that I will think about for years before I'll even ever think about the Olympia. I mean, there's only been 15 people ever to win the Olympia. You would have to be kind of messed up in the head to get into this. You haven't even won the Arnold. You barely even won a pro show, and you're like, man, I'm going to win the Super Bowl one day. It's like footy. Like, if people are playing footy, they're not thinking about finals. They're thinking about trying to make it to at least like the playoffs first and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I am with it, is I don't even think about the Olympia. I think that would be a dream. I think it would be really cool. I think that would be and that's what I'm saying. Then my name would then make one of the coolest things ever in the history of the sport if I won it. But no, I don't think about it. I just think about wanting to win the Arnold. My 5-year plan would be to have won the Arnold by now, and now I'm competing in the top 3 for the Olympia. Because really, until Phil won and Jay won, my favorite bodybuilders never even won the Olympia, to tell you the truth. They were always second place, third, won the Arnold. All my favorites weren't Mr. Olympias. So really, until Phil won, I never even cared about really winning the Olympia, except for the history part of it. I always felt like Kevin Levrone, Flex Wheeler, Sean Ray, Chris Cormier, they were the best bodybuilders ever, and they never even won the Mr. Olympia.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I want to thank you so much, Sergio, for coming on Desktop Bodybuilding. It honestly means the world to me. I've just taken 1 hour and 10 minutes of your time, which is a huge amount of time, and I feel really bad about that. But thank you so much. I think people will get a lot out of this interview and really get to know more of the real you, because I think sometimes that, we see these little bits of quotes and stuff pushed out there, and, Sergio said this, and it's not necessarily exactly what you said or exactly what was portrayed in interviews. So it's really great to get you on here, and like you said, I love bodybuilding. It's what I absolutely love. I love the industry of bodybuilding and even fitness as well. But generally, bodybuilding is my jam. And obviously, you're the same way. You're a historian and you're heavily into that, which I think is just absolutely amazing. So, Sergio, I hope you enjoy your time in Australia. Now, is there anyone you want to thank? Obviously, you sponsor yourself basically now of Cosmic Industries. How do people get in contact with you? How do people follow you? All that stuff. Let us know.
Well, first I wanted to say thank you to YouTube just for being one of the real fans. Like I said, this is the only interview that I've done except for the post one I did after the Arnold, and I don't plan on doing any other ones. I'm just tired of the people that are just going to use me just for views, and then they really aren't even following my career. I can tell by just having a conversation before we even did this that you not only follow bodybuilding, but you follow me in particular, and not just through social media. It's very easy to just hit a follow button and then see what someone posts. But a lot of the things you said, you had to have really followed me or really even read things that I write to know who I am. So I really appreciate that. Also, I am the most difficult person to get things going with, and your fans need to know that you have been trying so hard and you've been so patient. So I appreciate it, because I am like such an airhead sometimes when it comes to locking in a time, and you made this so stress-free. You never made me feel like I was pressured or I was like forced to do it. But thanks for being patient with me, because your fans don't even know how many times you've been writing me like, let me know. So I appreciate it, especially with everything that's going on with the coronavirus. But to get a hold of me, usually Instagram is probably the easiest. I say this all the time, and every time I do, I get all the crazy creeps. But I answer all my fans back on social media. I always respond back from something, even just an emoji. I've been a fan for so many years, and I would write my pros that I loved and never heard anything back. I've waited in line at expos just to meet someone just for them to be a jackass. So I know how it feels to be a small fan, and you just even might have a small question, or even you just want to just reach out to them. And that's why I always make sure that I reach back out to them. With Cosmic Industries, it's tough, because I want to be even posting about Cosmic. I want to be like, yeah, here's a 10% off coupon, stuff like that. But people aren't working out. And again, I just don't want to be fake. I don't want to force people to buy subs when we know we're literally walking around with bands in our house and trying to figure out how to lift milk jugs. You don't need a pre-workout for that. So we're kind of just going to let everything calm down, and then I'll worry about selling subs and clothes and stuff like that. But if people ever did want to buy anything, cosmic-industries.com is the supplement company, and Victory Clothing is my clothing line. But you can always reach out to me on Instagram, and I will always reach back out to them. And I appreciate your time, and everyone else too.
Yeah, and you have some mad clothing as well. I've got to actually get some because I love like the style of clothes you have out, man. Like I think it looks awesome. So it's really, really cool. And I think, man, like I know one supplement company as well, but they said their sales are actually gone up through the roof because people are trying to hoard protein because they're worried they're going to run out of food. So maybe people get on that Milky Way or something. I don't know.
That's what I need to do, exactly.
Yeah, just say start hoarding now. You can hoard from me and no one will be upset at you. So
Yes, I'm going to use that for sure.
Yeah. Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you so much, Cedric. Sergio. I messed up.
It's okay. I'll take it. You didn't call me Phil Heath, so that's something new. Finally, I'm someone else.
So thank you, Sergio. That's Sergio Oliva Jr., the 5th place finisher at the 2020 Arnold Classic and Pro Contest winner. Thank you very much. So that's it for another interview on Desktop Bodybuilding. Thank you so much, Sergio Oliva Jr., for coming on the channel. It's much appreciated, and I appreciate all the guys that have been coming on lately as well. Also, if you want to hear Patrick Moore's response to Sergio's comments in this video, make sure that you go to my channel, check out that video. The link is in the description as well. So I want to thank those guys for coming on and being so open about everything they had to say, and let me know what you think of this Sergio Oliva interview in the comments, and what you think about the whole dispute between Sergio and Patrick Moore and also Akim Williams, and what do you think about just everything that Sergio said. Just let me know in the comments. I really like reading all your guys' stuff. And if you guys like this content, please give me a thumbs up. Also subscribe and hit the notification bell button. That way you'll be notified of every video that goes up for myself, Xavier Wills at Desktop Bodybuilding. Anyway guys, for Xavier Wills, Desktop Bodybuilding, we are out.